Welcome everybody to the Inner Carnivore Podcast, episode 8, with my special guest, Victoria Ferraz. Before we get started, real quick, no matter where you're listening, whether it's Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, or watching the show on YouTube, if you guys could do a huge favor, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, comment, leave a review. It really helps us out. And if you do need any more information, you can always go to theinnercarnivore.com, check out merch, upcoming releases, as well as recipes, and a whole host of other things. So jumping right in, how are you today, Victoria?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing very good. So I ran across your story I guess it's probably been a couple months ago. I can't keep the year
hmm
straight. And initially, you had an article done by the New York Post, I believe,
Yes, there was one on the Daily Mail and then the New York Post as well.
and it kind of blew up. And
hmm
as soon as I saw it, I was like, okay, I gotta find this person and follow them because you have kind of a crazy story. So, for people that have not seen the article, for people who don't know your story, kind of a synopsis of what the article is. How did you get to where you are, which is full blown carnivore, make vegans mad personality?
Growing up, I never restricted anything. I ate a normal balanced diet. And however, there were a lot of symptoms. I was diagnosed at 9 with hypothyroidism. And just growing up, a lot of bloating, acne, fatigue, headaches, sinus issues, hair loss, everything that wasn't normal, but they tell you that's normal. And with the whole vegan propaganda, I decided to take that journey, take that step, because I have a very open mind. And I figured that that would help fix some of the issues, being all healthy and organic. On top of that, lose weight. So I decided to jump into that. I did that for a year strictly, and it did not sustain me. My lab work wasn't good. I was extremely vitamin deficient, and I would supplement with everything. Even before going vegan, I would supplement, do everything that I could, cleanses and all of this, but nothing helps. And then a year into that, I noticed that it wasn't working for me. Anxiety attacks, PMS symptoms were worse, and all of this stuff was just going on. And I was like, okay, you know what? This isn't working. I might as well just eat everything. Why am I going to watch people eat good food and I'm just going to eat this? So one day I just gave in into a hamburger, some milkshake, and I went all out. And that's when my life changed. And I went back to eating everything. However, the symptoms just got worse until my mom introduced me to carnivore because she saw a post from a doctor, Dr. Kiltz, in fact, because she's very big on health and wellness in this journey. So I was like, you know what? I might as well give it a try because what else do I have to lose, right? Carnivore? And I was like, no, this has to be crazy, like all meat, nothing else. But, at this point, what do you have to lose? So I started seeing the testimonies of all these people curing so many diseases and feeling better. And that's when it started. Carnivore.
It's so crazy because I didn't go vegan or really ever close to vegan, but I have a similar as to why I started carnivore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I went, I've always dieted and done athletics and amateur bodybuilding and all that kind of stuff. So dieting and restrictive eating is not something new to me.
Mm-hmm.
But it was one of those where I did. Are you familiar with the Whole 30 diet?
I don't think so.
So Whole 30 it's essentially it's super basic, right? It's just you eat whole foods. So
Okay.
it's nothing that's processed. It basically just eliminates all the junk. So you eat a lot of fruit, a lot of
Mm.
vegetables, a lot of lean meats. You can eat like rice and that kind of stuff. And I've done it before, and it's just a good way for me to get off of eating crap, right? Like I
Right.
call it eating like an asshole. And so I was like, I got a little bit of a dad bod. And I'm trying to lose it, and I'm tired of feeling kind of what you're describing. And I lost weight, but felt worse. Like I'm like, how is this possible? I went 90 days, 90 days of no alcohol, no cheating, no anything, and I'm like, man, this is dumb. Like I feel super restrictive, and I'm feeling worse. And at the time, I didn't equate anything other than how I just felt on a day to day basis to my diet.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I was like, okay, well, obviously I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm just going to go back to what I was doing and immediately put the weight back on. And then it was one of those moments where I was like, okay, like something has to change because I know I shouldn't be feeling this way. And it was my
Right.
wife that sent me a Carnivore MD, Paul Saladino post.
Okay.
And she phrased it with, it's a little kooky. Like, just take it with a grain of salt, but like, check it out. And I was like, the exact same thing. I was like, man, what do I have to lose? Like, I'm not going to feel any
Exactly.
worse.
Mm-hmm.
And so for you, when you started carnivore, how long until you started noticing that, wow, my diet is actually really affecting a lot of these things?
I want to say for sure in the begin, like the first 2, 3 weeks of eliminating things, you start feeling different for sure. Um, the cravings in the beginning are hard. So I was always trying to do, I don't know if you've heard the butter bites and all the carnivore
Mm-hmm.
cakes, trying to, the jellos or whatever, with electrolytes in it, because the cravings were hard. However, like maybe a month or two in, once you notice your body changing, you don't want to go back to those things. And then it's kind of like you start, oh, you know what? I feel good. Let me take a piece of bread and eat it. Or let me eat this cake or something like that. But you eat it and you feel disgusting. It's crazy. And you're like, wait, no, I'm going to stick to the meat.
And it's so true. Like, I, I like to tell people I have split personality when it comes to social media.
Uh-huh.
I try to stay positive for the most part on like Instagram and all of that, but Twitter is my where I like to poke at people, and that's the most common response is people will go, "Oh, what are you talking about? You're afraid of vegetables." I'm like, no, like you don't understand. Like when you give this stuff up, like, and you can relate to this. I thought bloating was just a normal part of life,
Mm-hmm.
right?
100%.
Like
Yep.
I've had a couple, bodybuilding coaches and competitors on here, and we were joking about how it's a very bodybuilding thing to you wake up first thing in the morning and you're like, I look amazing. Take all my pictures now, weigh myself, because the moment I even sniff food, I'm gonna bloat like crazy, and it looks like I put on 20 pounds during the day.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
people don't understand that concept. Like it's crazy
Expe-
to me.
Especially for women, or, oh, I have this little pouch on my stomach. I'm bloated. It's gut issues. Oh, but it's normal. Women have that. It's a protective layer. What? If you're not feeling okay, it's not normal. But
And
we're
it,
constantly told that these things are normal.
yeah, that's true. And I looked at, I read one of the articles, and it sounded like you were going consistently to medical professionals during your vegan journey. And what would they say when you'd bring up issues that you were having?
So, because of the hypothyroidism, I do checkups every 6 months. So, I'm always in and out doing labs. And I love labs because they tell me everything I need to know. I have a passion for them, looking at them nowadays because, my whole life I've been doing it. And they would just say that that's normal, that's normal, that's normal. Or with the hypothyroidism, this is something you're going to have for the rest of your life because your mom has it, so you have it. So, don't even think otherwise. Um, but all these things is just normal, 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 normal. And
Is
especially with PMS symptoms. Oh, you know what? Get on birth control. That'll help.
that's like obviously I'm not a woman. I do not have
Mm-hmm.
firsthand experience that, but I'm married, right? And that's the first thing with everything. Like I never knew that was like a doctor's first prescription for anything. You have something hormonal going on, get on birth control.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's mind blowing to me. So
And people are finally waking up to it.
yes, yes,
I would
I've
hope there.
because I've
Yeah.
seen that a lot, right? I've seen a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people once I started carnivore talking about getting off birth control and talking about the issues that people are having while on it. So how long into carnivore, like you start feeling better almost immediately?
Mm-hmm.
Did you always know that these issues you were having were diet related, or was it sometime during carnivore that you're like, holy cow, like this is actually might be related to what I've been eating all my life?
I think so, because like you said, just like you, I've always been into tracking what I eat and all this stuff. Um, so I always knew that it had to be something that I was putting into myself. Because we're not born like this. We shouldn't be taking organs out. like people are nowadays, or trying to just put medication to cover up the situation or symptoms up. So I do believe that in that whole transition, I knew it was the food. I just didn't know meat was going to be what healed me, which is crazy. It kind of
Hmm.
rewires your brain.
Yeah, for sure. How how do you go so drastic? Like I know your mom sent it to you, but most people they like do little steps, right? They're like, "Oh, I'm
Uh-huh.
going to cut this out. I'm going to go." You went from way over here to way over here.
Yeah.
Was that a was that a byproduct of you just finally being done, or like how does someone who maybe is in a similar situation, how do they flip that switch so that you go completely 180 like that?
It got to the point where you're done. Like enough is enough, right? To the point where there's nothing else I can do. So I jumped in with a 2 feet in, 100%. Didn't go into it slowly. I wanted to give it all my best because of the testimonies. People are healing. So I was like, why can't I heal? So I was like, I'm going to do this 100%. Um, Fortunately for me, I didn't have a really bad transition due to the oxalate dumping and the carnivore flu. My mom tried to do it. She had a really, really tough experience with oxalate dumping. But I think today, if I were to go back and tell myself, I would go into it slowly. Especially because I don't know, everybody's different. But just to, yeah, I would switch that. I wouldn't do what I did, but
Yeah.
what I did help me.
Yeah. No, I
A
totally get
lot of,
that.
yeah.
What would be your advice as to what would constitute slowly? So, like, if you went over and did it again, and you're not going to
Yeah.
jump in head first, how would you go about it?
Start taking out some veggies, carbs, sugar. Try to incorporate the low carb, low oxalate veggies, and increase your protein every week a little bit. Get yourself used to that, and just go from there. Is that
That's
how? Are you a strict carnivore? Strictly, right? Or
I am pretty close. So
okay.
I am getting closer and closer to strict carnivore.
Mm-hmm.
For the longest time, I've been a little bit closer to animal based, but I don't eat very much fruit. So that would be
Okay.
the sticking factor between something like Paul Saladino recommends is I never eat
Mm-hmm.
that much fruit. Like we're talking like maybe a serving of fruit and maybe a serving of honey. I'm transitioning more and more to getting rid of that because I don't feel like I need it. In the past,
Mm-hmm.
I just felt better eating a little bit of it, but I had a super slow transition into it. For the
Yeah. How
first
did that
for the
go?
first 4 months, I just my meals were carnivore. So I ditched the veggies right away. Like I could
Okay.
not get rid of veggies fast enough. Like when that was the sticker, right? Wait a minute, I don't have to eat veggies. I'm in. I don't care. I'm in.
Right.
I will follow it. And so immediately got rid of those. I was the king of making huge batches of stir fry and then they just rot in the back of the fridge. And every time I open the fridge, I'm like, nope, not today. Not happening. Right? Because I was so sick of eating reheated vegetables. Like just ugh. So I got rid of that immediately. Um, my meals were mostly red meat, eggs in the morning, but I would still stack, right? I would still have fruit for a snack. I would still, if I
Okay.
wanted to have chips or a drink at night, like I would still do that. And so I kind of like, I was very much just like toe in the water,
Uh-huh.
but I started feeling a lot better. And I was like,
Okay.
okay, there's something to this. And it was honestly, it was the bloating or the lack of bloating that made me realize I was like, okay, I can actually, because, I lost about 20 pounds.
Wow.
Um, which, and again, it wasn't the weight loss because that's something that I've always been able to throttle up and down, but I
It's
just
just like a
felt better.
beneficial consequence of
Exactly.
carnivore.
Right? Because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people will start for the weight loss, but they just want to feel better. Like almost everybody that I've talked to is like, I just wanted to feel better. And so I started this, and then all of a sudden I lost 30 pounds or I lost 50 pounds. And I was like, okay, now what do I do? Oh, wait, I guess I'll start working out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that I was very, very, ease into it. And then around the first of the year, I was like, okay, I'm gonna get a little more stricter with this.
And do you
So
feel you feel
go ahead.
better with it, right?
I do.
More
Yeah.
strict? Uh-huh.
Yeah. I think I'm actually So I don't know if I was to take how I felt 6 months ago and how I feel now, I would say it's pretty similar.
Okay.
The difference is I don't have the periods where I feel like I need carbs. Because I would
Mm-hmm.
I would have periods where I don't need a lot, but I was like, I need something like around my workout or after my workout, like just a serving of fruit or maybe a banana, maybe a little bit of honey, like just something that's going to help me feel better. Now I can just go, nah, I don't really need that. So I feel similar, but I feel like I've finally gotten away from being reliant on those carbs.
Is your wife carnivore with you?
She's not.
Or
So
okay.
she is similar. We've always had pretty contrasting schedules for so pretty much since we started dating, we've always made like our own food, and it's not like a
Mm-hmm.
separation thing, it's just an
Yeah.
ease of convenience. And so she has focused a lot more on red meat, but she'll still eat like rice and sweet potatoes, regular potatoes, fruit, that kind of stuff. So it's close, but not
Mm-hmm.
but not quite the same. So yeah, when I talk to people about jumping in, I'm like, you got to know your personality, right? If you can handle it, just if you're the type that just needs to rip the band-aid off and go for it, do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think some people get so scared about, oh, I have to jump in. Like I have to just go all out. I can't, and some people think it's the lion diet. They're like, the only thing I can do
Yeah.
is snack on raw meat and drink water for the rest of my life. And they get super hesitant about it. So I think that's super good advice to, hey, don't be afraid to just remove stuff as you go and like ease your
Mm-hmm.
way into it.
Right. Because then your body's gonna start telling you, and once you start feeling those effects, you yourself, you're gonna just want to eat meat.
Right? Exactly. So I got to ask,
Mm-hmm.
were you, so when you decided to go vegan, did you have friends that were vegan? What was you mentioned the propaganda. What was it that's like, okay, I'm gonna give veganism a try?
I was really into organic things, healthy things, and all the greens, so that kind of made it easy for me to transition into that. And also because of, I already had in my mind, like, I need to take away these sugars and all of the junk food. So that eased me into the veganism. My family, friends, no one was vegan. They actually thought honestly, it's funny because when I was vegan, they thought I was crazy. Now that I'm carnivore, they think I'm crazy. So I think they've always thought that I'm just crazy. But I think they're crazy for eating these normal balanced diets. So it's okay because it's just carbs. This balanced diet that people want to talk about so much, it's literally just carbs. It's so much. And, obviously the veggies and stuff. But so, yeah, I've always been kind of alone in this journey.
Yeah,
No
I
one on.
I totally get
Mm-hmm.
that. Because I was like I would do the bodybuilding prep, like I was the classic bodybuilding food, like lightly seasoned chicken with rice in a Tupperware, like sitting in the corner eating at random times. And so my family was, I was like, all right, whatever, like it's just another thing. But it's funny. There's a bunch of memes that go around. They're like, nobody cared if I get a pack of Oreos and a couple donuts and a frozen pizza. Like nobody's gonna have a problem with that. But
Exactly.
if I have, eat a bunch of meat, like people are gonna lose their mind over it.
They freak out. Exactly. It's hard to comprehend that.
Yeah, it's super crazy. I actually had a guest on who crazy story. I actually just released the episode. She had a Parkinson's diagnosis,
Okay.
rheumatoid arthritis diagnosis, had a stroke, had an infection from an IV with the stroke, just all these things, and then started changing. Once she finally got better, started changing her diet and went from basically having to live in a home, an assisted living, to being on
Mm-hmm.
her own and like just doing amazing. And her family, even to this, right? So she has a before and after where she's in a hospital. I guess she's in rehab, but she's at the point where most people with somebody in their 60s are going to be like, okay, we need to start like either it's going to be full time care or we got to start preparing for what's going to happen.
Hmm.
And now she's like almost 70 and like rocking and like doing all this stuff and looks amazing. And she'll
Wow.
tell her family, like even to this day, she'll tell her family what she wants from the grocery store. They're, hey, I'm going to go to the store. What do you want? She's like, oh yeah, pick me up, some beef, some steaks, maybe some this, and that, right? Typical, carnivore, low carb, keto type stuff. And they'll go, really? Like you don't that what? Like they look at her like she's crazy. And I'm like, how? How can you guys witness this right in front of you and still think we're the crazy ones because we're not eating all the junk in there?
And at the end of the day, I think all of this just gets political because we've been sold lies for a long, long time to the point where this, you look at the ribeye, all the nutrients in it, or beef in general. Um, and a lot of people don't know that. They look at meat and they just think, okay, it's meat. They don't see the vitamins in it. But then you look at a veggie, oh my goodness, broccoli? That is the holy grail right there, you know? That's going to fix all your problems. Like, where did we go wrong?
That's
And this new thing with Bill Gates funding appeal now, the top coat on the veggies and the fruits, even the organic ones. Yeah, and his fake meat. Oh no.
yeah. I honestly don't know what to think. Like, I mean,
What are
because
your
I
thoughts?
well, so I never really, to be honest, never thought about it like prior to starting this, and that's the crazy thing to me is I also, I have a long history nutrition and fitness industry and that. So for the longest time, I've been plugged into diets, right? And I've,
Mm-hmm.
I've known veganism was out there, but I never knew any of this propaganda stuff. Like I never, it was years ago that I stopped paying attention to pretty much anything anybody said from the government. Yeah, okay, whatever. Like I just,
Yeah, pretty much.
don't have local TV, don't watch the news. Whatever information I get is this couple things somebody might post on social media, right?
Right.
Amazing how much happier you are. But I've started getting into this, and then I realized like this huge clash in information. It's not just vegans. It's, there's vegans on one side and carnivores on the other. And then you have this whole group of, medical professionals and government officials who seem to be promoting their own agenda. And I never realized how skewed everything can be. Like I can go on PubMed right now and find a study that says veganism is the way, and then I can
Mm-hmm.
find one that says meat's the way, and then I can
Right.
find one that says don't worry about sugar, you can eat as much as you want, and then one that's like meat causes diabetes, and then sugar causes diabetes, and you're like, how can we have? It's 2023, right? I can see planets that are millions and millions and millions of miles away, but we can't get some consensus on nutrition.
Right.
And then you're like, okay, well, why is that? And then you start realizing who funds studies and why they can be so skewed. And then you just end up in a whole nother rabbit hole. And then you realize this is why we're at where we're at.
And it's crazy because I have a lot of friends who are going to medical school or they're nurses and they've done or residencies, and all of this and that. And you ask them, hey, do you guys learn about nutrition? No, we don't. We learn about what food we should give you in accordance to the medication that we give you. And it's, aren't you a doctor? Like, aren't you a nurse? Shouldn't you be practicing medicine and not just prescribing things to people? You should be curing them from the root cause. That's what medicine is. But it's not that anymore. And you ask these students, do you know what an oxalate is? No, I don't know what that is. What do you mean you don't know what that is? It's it's crazy.
Yeah, so my degree's in sports medicine, and
Okay.
the curriculum is fairly close to what a pre-med student would be. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so like pre-med is what you're going to take on an undergraduate and then, move on into either medical school or, a master's of nursing or something like that. And so I've either taken or been exposed to most of those classes. And I honestly couldn't tell you a single thing that any class I ever took on why you should eat what you should eat. The only thing I can remember is a sports related one on maybe how you should carb up before like a cross country runner does a 15K.
And how you
or
need fiber.
yeah, or a marathon runner, or when you shouldn't eat before an athletic event or something like that. And so I actually went because doctors have such a huge platform, especially on social media. Like there's doctors that have millions of followers, and so
Right.
whatever they say is going to be gobbled up information. And so I actually went, and there's one in particular, and I won't name him, but I went on to where he went to medical school and looked up their curriculum. There's not one single class, cardiologist, not one single class devoted to nutrition. And I'm like, okay, so there's nothing on nutrition. So now that means that every doctor has to look up their own information, which is
Mm-hmm.
basically what medical school is, right? You learn your basics and then you're taught how to access information.
Right.
And so now everybody has their own opinion. And so you have one cardiologist that says, absolutely do not eat meat. It's going to kill you. It raises your, risk of heart disease. Don't eat cholesterol. It raises your risk of heart disease. And then you have another one that goes, don't eat carbs. It's going to raise your risk of heart disease. And you wonder why we can't figure out what to eat. Like, it's just mind blowing.
It's exact. How do you do labs, or do you
I
barely get any?
have I have a couple.
Okay.
So I have a pretty typical. I don't have anything to base this off of, because I had never done a lab. Like I'm pretty
Mm-hmm.
anti-doctor,
Okay.
except for orthopedics. Like I'll go see an orthopedic surgeon. That's the sports in me.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd never had blood labs done before. So I had one done about 6 months ago, and pretty common with what a lot of people on carnivore see. I had an elevated LDL, but I had good HDLs and super low triglycerides.
Right.
And so I'm like, the guy who did it wasn't actually my doctor. It was a PA who ordered them for me. And he's like, oh, geez, those are high. Well,
It's
good.
it's crazy because they look. Someone could have a triglycerides of like 100 with their cholesterol at 80, and they say, "Oh, you're doing great. Continue what you're doing." That makes me so mad.
Well, and it's
They
it's not looking at anything else.
they want to blame cholesterol so badly for what? When it's just, all these other markers. I'm not
Yeah,
going to sit here and say, of course, have 1,000 cholesterol with 100 or 200 triglycerides, but the problem's not cholesterol. It never was. We need it. We're made of it. And as long as everything else is low and your cholesterol is high, that's fine. As long as it's not from seed oils.
yeah. And it leads me back to, I said about orthopedic surgeons. Like I've seen a bunch. I've had a whole bunch of sports industries, a bunch of surgeries. So I have a lot of experience with that side of medicine. And the number one thing that they will all tell you, and anybody who's ever been to an orthopedic surgeon, they will all tell you to listen to your body. They're like, if it
Mm-hmm.
hurts, don't
That's
do it,
good. Mm-hmm.
right? It's probably a sign that something's wrong. But you get into and go see somebody for blood work, see a general practitioner or a cardiologist, and you tell them, I had some hair loss, like reverse. I lost, had acne clear up. I lost some psoriasis that I had. Bloating went down. Like I lost weight. I feel better. I have more energy. I sleep better. All of these things. I don't even have crazy results. Like I have nothing crazy that would make somebody go, oh my gosh, that's the best thing ever. But I can sit here and talk for 10 minutes about how my life has improved, and they'll go, but that LDL, I think we need to change your diet.
Exactly. It's crazy.
I go, so you want me to go back? You would rather, and this is right the thing with the veganism, when you asked your doctors, you would rather have me feel all of these things. You would rather have
Mm,
me have inflammatory issues, have me GI issues, not sleep as well, lower energy, just so I can fit some arbitrary number that we now know isn't quite as important as you guys think it is.
right. And it's funny because I actually got a comment the other day and they were saying, "Oh, you're a fake vegan because if you were really vegan, you would continue to be vegan." And I was like, "Okay, so I'm going to allow myself to be ill just so I won't be a fake vegan." Like, great argument. That was beautiful. Like,
I
come
was
on.
I was gonna segue into the number one thing that I see from anybody who has, like, you can't go on Twitter, Instagram's a little bit better because Instagram's not as open to people that don't follow you. But
Mm-hmm.
Twitter's like the Wild West, right? Like, I can have 5,000 followers and 200,000 people see my post. And you're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay. But I have yet to see somebody that went from vegan, that was not healthy, to any diet, whether it's low carb or keto or paleo or carnivore, and have a positive transformation. And there are not 100 vegans in the comments saying you did it wrong.
They want to, yep.
So, what has your experience been from that? Like, what has the pushback you've gotten from? Because I've seen a lot of comments on some stuff that you've
Yeah.
posted.
And they say, oh, I've been a vegan for this long, so I know more about plant-based than you. It's like, I'm sorry that your narrative didn't work for me, but I did it right. I took the supplements. What else would you want me to do? I just laugh. I sit and laugh because they're so misinformed. And you just got to sit back and laugh. It's so many things. And you read these comments, and it's like, are you reading this before you type it? Before you hit that send? Because they contradict their own selves. But vegans will be the first one to be there. You did it wrong. This is your fault. Or you're fake. Like I was saying, you're a fake vegan. That's why it didn't work for you because it's a lifestyle and it's not a diet. But okay, to each its own. It's like, okay, yeah, continue to be sick. Just, follow that lifestyle. People, it's the seed oils. It's the seed oils in their heads. That's what I say.
That's a good one.
They're losing the neurons.
Were you plugged into the vegan community when you were vegan?
No, I was never about, I guess, posting about it or being open about it. It's kind of more of a private thing. But now with Carnivore, because of the results, because of the knowledge behind it, I want to promote that. I want to give others the opportunity, as I'm sure you as well, to show people that there is something other than what they know. It just really depends on who wants to be open to listen to it or not. But I
Yeah,
felt we have the opportunity and the right to share all of this. So,
that's kind of what I went. I was probably a good 6 months on it before I decided to start a social media, and
mhm.
so I just created new ones. Like I've had like dedicated social medias in the past to different areas because I try not to make it my personal one because there's just crazy people out there, right? And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna start it. Like I've had pretty good results, and I feel like at the very least I could get plugged into more information about it because it's still hard. Like outside of a couple of the main people,
Mhm.
there unless you get plugged in, there's not a whole lot of information. I feel
And
like
it's
there's
a
a lot
small
more now.
community. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a small community.
So I was like, I'm gonna get plugged in. I'll start this. Originally, it was just gonna be like I wasn't really gonna post like myself. I was just gonna post, various nutritional things, and then maybe make a food video once in a while. And then it kind of just went. And I never knew those issues as far as how much vegans hated carnivores. Like I had no idea.
And the balanced diets.
And it was honestly, it was Jesslyn, when she's on here, she's like, nobody knows what like real hate is until you post a video of you eating butter, and then people lose their minds.
I was just about to say, this is not for the weak. And people also comment, oh, this is just for clicks and views. Of course, you do anything for attention. We're not doing this because it's trendy, because if you post yourself eating meat, we're getting hate. You're going to die. You should get cancer because of this, the animals, or you're going to have a heart attack, or this and that. And we're stupid, we're dumb, we're idiots. So it's like, no, we're not doing this for clicks and views. This isn't just something trendy that we're doing, because if anything, we're getting more hate than positivity. There are some people, a good share of carnivores who come in, or people who actually have tried it. They're not carnivores, but they share their experience, positive things, but it's more hate. And I think, and it's everyone, every carnivore you see or animal based you see their posts or their media. It's a lot of controversial things going on.
And I don't think people understand if I really wanted to blow up, like it's taken me a while to get a decent following. I still don't have a very big following, but if I really wanted to blow up, the number one way to blow up would be a carnivore to vegan story. And I would have 10,000 vegan followers in
Right
like a
there.
week. Right? I could take some picture, some arbitrary picture about back when I was a meat eater and be like, now I'm a vegan. Oh my gosh, for the animals. Like, if I really wanted clicks,
Right there. How do you deal with it? How have you been? I
so
know you do get some controversial things.
I love it. Like, I really enjoy seeing what levels people will stoop to on the internet because I feel like people have such a low bar as like the moral high ground that they will stick to. And so I know there's some people that get affected by it. And I understand that. Like, it's hard to have people like constantly attack you, but to have like a grown person
Hmm.
wish heart attacks and colon cancer on you and call you names and just these long string of expletives and abusers and oh my gosh, I had one person was like, I'm super glad you don't live anywhere near my kids. I'm like, you realize like you just put that on the internet. Like there's people that think like you that are gonna go, woohoo. But even if somebody is not carnivore, even if somebody has no interest in being carnivore, you read that stuff and go, what is wrong in your life that you would act that way on the internet?
That you have to, right, just keep scrolling. If you don't have anything nice to say, and they'll, oh, I got a comment there. Oh, I'm going to block you because this wasn't like, you didn't warn me about this. Just keep scrolling. Or they'll comment, this is disgusting. But you took the time of your day to comment that this is disgusting. Clearly, I got your attention.
My favorite comeback is people will say stuff and I'm like, my page is not the one for you. Like
That's
you
good.
should not be. And then they'll keep commenting. And I'm like, you know what? There's a super cool feature. It's called a block button. You can block it and never see anything that I have to post ever again. And they'll either not comment or they'll just continue. And I'm like, this is
And they
easy
get
for me.
mad.
Yeah, like this is easy. I can like formulate these responses in about 3.5 seconds. I put no thought into it whatsoever. And all I'm trying to do is just see how far you'll go to prove your point to some random person on the internet.
Yeah, it's mind blowing. It's mind blowing. How long have you been
So I
carnivore?
hit a year in September,
A
so a
year.
little
Okay,
over a
wow.
year, and I've been
Hmm.
about 11 months. I guess we're in November. Yeah, about 11 months, fairly strict.
Okay.
And so I'm
And
good.
do you do high fat or mainly the butter
Uh,
or just more meat?
I eat a lot of meat, so I don't add a ton of fat to my stuff. I did a butter eating video because
Hmm.
somebody, like a carnivore that I follow, got a bunch of hate. Was like, I want to do a butter video. And I was like, okay, I'll do one for you. I can't do it. I can't do just the butter, like the texture, and it's just, I can't do it. Um, I don't consciously add a lot, but I eat a lot of, 80, 20 ground beef,
Hmm.
fattier steaks, eggs, that kind of stuff. So I end up with a fairly high fat diet, but I'm not consciously trying to add a whole bunch of fat.
Okay. And do you feel better with more fat or it's about the same thing, so that's why you don't really mind it? Or
Um, I honestly, so I'm going to transition after Thanksgiving into
hmm.
kind of a BBBE, so bacon or beef, bacon,
Okay.
butter, and eggs.
Hmm.
Just because cheese is the hard one for me. I love cheese. I love
Okay.
everything about cheese, but I've always known that cheese, like I have a little bit of an inflammatory response to cheese,
Okay.
and
Hmm.
I've been okay, but I'm like, no, I want to get like a little better. So that's basically what I eat right now anyway, is all of that plus cheese. So I'm gonna cut it out. I'm gonna actively like try to up my fat a little bit to see how I feel, but I've never been a super high fat person. It's always been high protein, and now that I'm not eating carbs, I just make sure that that protein has fat with it.
I feel that with cheese or dairy, I get more cravings. I want to eat more after it. I do feel really well on high fat, and I've noticed that if I go on the lower end of it, I start feeling not as great. And then I increase my fat, and it's like superwoman again. That's my
What's
experience.
what levels of fat? Do you track your fat levels or
Honestly, I don't. I don't track anything. I just know that I need to add some more fat in there. It's weird, like the taste buds. Like you know when you know. Your body just knows. And when people who listen and don't do carnivore, they'll be like, "What is she talking about?" But if you do carnivore, you know what I'm talking about because your body really tells you what it needs and what it feels good with.
that's super true. Because again, I was, a couple of these like on prep, you get these, you have such a restricted diet and you have a low calorie and most of the time low fat, and you just eat every ounce of food that you have. Like nothing goes to waste because you're like, that's all I got. Whereas carnivore, I don't really track either. When I set up my plan, I might look at the macros and
Mm-hmm.
then make like little adjustments in my head because I've been doing it for so long.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll sit down and eat a steak. This happened a couple days ago. I sat down to eat a steak. I got about 2/3 of the way done with it, and I was like, I'm full.
Mm-hmm.
I'm done. Which never would happen before, right? If I have, how many times have you, do you want a box? Nah, I'm going to eat this last 500 calories of pasta because I can make myself do it. Or, I'll eat this last, rice or these last, whatever it is. No problem. But man, when I'm done with meat, there's nothing about it that makes me want to go, nah, I can finish this. I'm going to power through it.
And the thing is, it's the only thing that leaves you satiated. You can eat any other thing and you still have those cravings or that hunger. But when you eat meat, it tastes good and you feel good.
Yeah, and it's something that's really hard to explain to people. And
Yeah,
that's honestly what I kind of like morphed my social media stuff into, is trying to get the normal person to realize that what you think is normal is not supposed to be normal. Like you're not supposed to be on these medications. You're not supposed to be. I used to have it. If I went too long without eating, I'd start to get a little shaky. And I'm like, man, I'm like getting like hypoglycemic right now or something. Like I gotta eat and I gotta eat fast, or this is like it's not gonna be a good time. And I've never had issues with blood sugar or anything like that, but I would know that if I didn't eat during certain windows, that it was gonna be bad. And that honestly, it took a little while even on carnivore to get rid of that. But now, if if I know I have something at 9 o'clock in the morning and I don't eat breakfast and I'm not gonna be home till 12, it's okay. Like I might be a little hungry, but there's
right.
no point of me, which is like I need to pull over to a gas station and just get something to shovel in my face so that I don't just wilt away and die.
I think one thing is what's actually hard is under eating because you're so full that you really just want to eat. You could eat once a day and you'd be fine. So one thing that I have found difficult is having to actually, eat more. In the beginning, I was eating a lot. But actually one of my first video that people think I'm crazy for, it was a lot of food. But in the beginning, I was eating all that food because of the cravings and I wanted to satisfy those cravings and I didn't want to turn to other things. So I was just eating, 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 eating. But then as my body has adjusted, I I want to eat like once a day, but I do twice a day because I know that I need those nutrients and we need to eat, right? We can't undereat. But
I think it's such a power to, like, the body wants homeostasis. Like the body wants to be in a position that it's comfortable in, that it does well in, and then it doesn't want to move out of it.
mhm,
And when you finally start to eat foods that fuel that, like your body starts to tell you, like, yeah, you don't have to count calories because when you're hungry, because in the past it's like, how do I kill these hunger cravings? Look at
Yeah.
any weight loss medication, look at any over the counter weight loss medication, thermogenics. They all have an appetite suppressant in them because they want something to trick your body into thinking that you're not hungry in order that you won't eat. And so then by extension, you lose weight.
And then people start getting problems with your adrenaline and your leptin receptors, and then, or you have metabolical issues and this and that, and they're giving you or medication for it. Do this, do that. You're just ruining your system even more.
But then
It's
if you go
what
to a
you eat.
doctor,
It's what
then they're
you
going to put you
eat.
on take birth control or take some, hyperthyroidism, like
Take this
any.
injection. Let's give you a shot.
So how has your thyroid issues been since starting carnivore?
So, for the first time after it was 6, 7 months after carnivore, for the first time, I was told that I could start coming off my medication, which, that's really big. And I will continue to tell people carnivore healed my thyroid because never in my life was I told that there was a possibility that I could come off medication. And now here I am. I feel like I have to explain this more specifically because people love to take things out of context. And oh my gosh, like a comment, how would your doctor just take you off your medication like that? Your doctor must not be good. Anyways, this is all being watched or guided from my doctor. And for the first time, because everything is great, my labs are great. She said there's because I have a very low percent, or my medication is very low instead of high, the dosage. There's no point of me going lower dosage and then like coming off of it. So at my situation, I can already stop and see how it goes. And that's where I am right now. I'm completely off the medication. I'm going to go back, do some blood work, see where I'm at. However, I do feel good. So I hope everything is going to be okay. But I will always say carnivore healed my thyroid because it did. Because never on a balanced diet was I able to come off a medication. While I was vegan, I was not able to come off a medication. Carnivore, 7 months in, my lab looks great. I am able to experience this possibility of coming off the medication. So it's been great.
And I love hearing that because like prescription medication is such an issue, no matter what it is. I think the stat is people over the age of 50, it's like 70% of people over the age of 50 are on some type of prescription medication,
Mm-hmm.
which is absurd. But so far in the people that I've talked to, we've had blood pressure medication come off of, Parkinson's medication come off of, rheumatoid arthritis medication come off of, thyroid medication come off of, like hormone therapy come off of, like just all of this stuff. Topical medications for skin. Go ahead.
Sorry, I get excited.
No,
The
good.
hormone situation. They want to do the chips, the BioT chips, or inject people with hormones. They're feeding you a low cholesterol diet so you can go back to them and purchase these things. It's all profit driven. So people are coming off, oh, I have hormonal imbalance. That's because you're on this low fat, low cholesterol diet. I'm not going to say that's the only factor, but that's one of the big causes. And it's just so funny because people don't realize this. They're pushing low cholesterol, and then you get to a certain age where your hormones are practically depleted and you have to take testosterone, estrogen, and all of this, and people want to say, oh, it's just because I'm aging, it's because I'm old. No, it's not because of that. It's because of the diet you're following and what you're being sold. It's all just profit driven. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I feel like I just go on for hours and hours. Before we go, I want a couple things.
Yeah.
What would be your advice to people who are listening to this and they're like on the fence? Either they've started it a little bit or they haven't, or they have doctors, or they want to start it and they have doctors who are like, no, you can't. What would be your advice to people on how to start?
On how to start, I'm going to go back to say, I think start slow, have an open mind, do your research. Um, Research is very important, and just start slow because how you feel is how that's what's going to guide you. How you feel is what's going to guide you. And don't be discouraged if you're going through a detox phase. That is normal, just like any other transition in life. So don't be discouraged. See how it goes. Start slow, increase that fat. I'm a high believer in fat because we need that. And that's that.
I think that's
Don't
a
be scared of meat.
I think that's a super important point, because for so long, like fat's been the issue, right? Low fat.
Mm-hmm.
Like how many things I can go into the grocery store right now, and how many things are labeled low fat? Like whether it's our dairy products or like even foods that should never have fat in them in the first place will have a label that says a low fat food. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, so for my entire growing up, like fat's been demonized,
Yeah.
right? And I even believed it. Like I was the guy who, I would have red meat once in a while. I didn't think red meat was bad for you, but when I was structuring out a diet, like I would try to keep my fat low. And so I
Mm-hmm.
would eat the ground turkey. I would eat the, 93.7 ground beef.
As lean as possible.
Yeah, the turkey bacon, the, almost never have steak, chicken breast, not chicken thighs, definitely not,
Right.
chicken drumsticks with the skin on, like none of that stuff. And I think that's so important is if people can just realize, like, just eat the fat, like, you will be amazed at what happens.
One thing with the thyroid, our thyroid needs fat. And a lot of people don't know that. What also triggers me is people want to have the protein shakes. They want to eat chicken breast, which is just dead protein to me. Go eat a steak, as you say. Go eat a steak. They will do everything but eat a steak. Oh, gotta get my protein shaken. Go eat a steak.
You'd be amazed at what happens if you just would eat a steak.
Do you ever get scared before we end? Do you ever get scared long term wise? Does it ever get to you? Do you think, goodness, will I be able to live the rest of my life like this? Do you think you would ever incorporate some things back into your life?
Um, I am never scared that this is not going to be like sustainable or that I'm going to have some negative effect from it because I'm a firm believer that there's no way that so many positives could happen. And I'm not talking about like just like your story or other people's. I'm talking about
Mm-hmm.
me personally. Like anecdotal evidence, right? That doesn't count. It's anecdotal evidence. Well, guess what? That's all nutrition is a whole bunch of anecdotal evidence. But there's no way that I can respond like this and clear up so many things, which is obviously the body's way of saying, hey, this is working. And then it ends up being like negative in the end. Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Might I have a heart attack? Sure. Might I have a stroke? Sure. Is it going to be from the diet? I don't think so. Could it be? It's possible, but I could also get hit by a truck tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a firm believer that you should do. I like to pose the question, okay, would you rather live and feel great until 70 or from now until 80 be sickly and in and out of medications and like merely survive the last 20 years of your life?
Right.
Like that's a no-brainer for me. Sure, I'll shave off 10 years, and I'm not saying for anybody listening, I'm not saying carnivore is going to shave off time off my life. But I'm a
Mm-hmm.
firm believer that your quality of life right now should be it's like the job, right? Do you really want to make, all the money in the world if you're miserable all the time? Or do you want to make a little less money and be happy?
Right.
And so I think your diet should enrich your life, not make it worse. And I found a diet that is very easily, aligned with what we've eaten for the entirety of human existence. So I find it really, really hard to believe that all of a sudden what we've been eating since the beginning of time is now all of a sudden going to kill me.
Right. Agreed.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I will continue to eat this way because I love it and I do well with
Mm-hmm.
it. And I have yet to see anything that can correlate red meat with any of these issues. Like
That's true.
I would love one person to show me one single study that is able to isolate red meat. Like I'm
Yeah,
not talking
there.
these Harvard studies
Uh-huh.
that say if you eat a sandwich or you eat a lasagna, that counts as red meat and you're going to get diabetes and die. Like, no, I want one study that isolates red meat, and then we can talk about whether
Right.
my
No
diet made.
study, right? No study isolates it. It's always other factors involved. Nothing isolates it. Do you think, do you need, do you, or let me say that. Do you go 100% grass fed on everything? Do you think you need the best quality? You,
So this one actually like hits home with me a little bit because I
okay.
had a gentleman who I'll have on here at some point
I
who
saw
messaged
that.
me,
I think
yeah,
you posted
and was
about it.
like, "Hey, like I'm like super glad you posted just using regular meat because I'm on a fixed income and that's all I can afford."
Mm-hmm.
And just without any context, I was like, "Man, I can't believe like people would make this guy feel bad because he doesn't eat organic, grass fed, like know his butcher by name."
Mm-hmm.
And then for anybody who's listening, it's my pinned post on all of my social medias. The guy lost like 200 pounds with cerebral palsy in a wheelchair. Like, amazing transformation, mostly meat based keto. And he eats the store bought Kroger ground beef and steak. And so, no, I do not think you need to do that in order to be healthy. Um, do I think it's better grass fed? Sure. But I also have a hard time, whether I can afford it or not, I have a hard time looking at $2 a pound ground beef and then choosing to spend $10 a pound.
And also, everything's not going to be 100% perfect. And I think that's also important because a lot of people are scared of saying, "Oh, I need it to be the best quality meat so I can feel good." It's you don't. You don't need the best quality meat. You don't need the best cut. Any meat is going to be better than
Yeah.
broccoli.
And people, and you're going to get that hate from carnivores too. Like, you're going to get the
Yeah.
hate, be like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
they put pink goo in it, or I'm like, you know what? At the end of the day, you have to accept that there's some things you can't control unless that is your animal that you raise and feed every single thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they can put from the USA and it's still imported. It was just
Mm-hmm.
packaged in the US. Like, there's so many things that are gray areas, and that is not one that I get, you know, up in fits about because I'm of that opinion. Eat beef, eat the best quality that you can comfortably afford, and no, it is not going to be the difference life or death whether you eat organic 100% grass fed or whether shop the sales and buy that.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's an awesome point. Well, I'm super glad you came on. Thank you very, very much.
Me too. Thank
For
you for having me.
Absolutely. For anybody out there who wants to follow more of your stuff, what social media platforms are you on, and what are your handles on there?
So Instagram is my name, Victoria Ferraz. So two A's at the end and two Z's at the end. TikTok, vic.faraz. And right now that's where I'm promoting carnivore.
Excellent. I would highly recommend you guys follow. I always love accounts that, this sounds a little sadistic, but I love accounts that get the hate and can handle it. Like, I don't want the people who, because I get it's going to affect some people. I don't want those people to get, bombarded with hate, but
Right.
if it's
Hmm.
people that push back and, clap back with videos and they get a whole bunch of hate, like, that's entertaining to me. Like I said,
It's funny. Yeah.
I enjoy seeing what levels a grown person will stoop to for a random internet stranger. Like, that's just, and so, yeah, I do that as well. I like to egg on a little bit to see just how far they'll go, because at the end of the day, it's super easy for me to put the phone down and walk away and never think about you ever again in my life. Like,
It's like
so,
they're commenting
th-
on your stuff, right? It's not
right,
you going on theirs. So,
right. I do that a little bit too, but
oh.
we'll pretend that doesn't happen. So I really appreciate you being on. Anybody listening to this, go give her a follow. TikTok, Instagram. I'll link both of those on both my TikTok and my Instagram. I appreciate everybody listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review if it's possible. Thank you guys very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.